So you were qualified then as a pilot in an A4?
Yes.
And what kind of an aircraft was that?
That's an attack aircraft. It's probably the smallest tactical aircraft that the Marine Corps had. It's about 12,500 pounds, a little over 27-foot wingspan, about 47 feet long if I remember. And a single place. You very small canopy. You probably could say you wore the aircraft, and but it was extremely maneuverable, and it was basically built for what the Marine Corps' primary mission was as far as the air wing of the Marine Corps, and that was close air support for the ground troops.
And you were qualified on that aircraft?
Yes.
How many hours did you have?
Oh, I think I had about 750. It's been a while since I looked at my
And then did you have any carrier landings?
Had 6 practice landings.
What was that like?
Well, it's interesting, I guess. It's I guess all carrier landings are a little spooky. Night landings are probably more closely akin to getting close to terrifying, but on your traps. I heard they did have one study that they'd done by hooking sensors to the pilots that were flying missions over the north that measured heart rates and perspiration rates and whatnot, and that the perspiration rate and the heart rates and whatnot were all higher on those pilots when they were coming back, especially for a night trap, than they were when they were taking fire over the north.
It says a lot. So you got home you went back to Libby right away, or would you go back to the Forest Service?
I went back to Libby, and I was in Libby for, what was it, 74? 74, I think it was 74, I went to Sula on the Bitterroot, and as a timber stand improvement forester. Was there for 3 years? It was about 78 or so. And during that time I was selected to attend the graduate continuing education in forest and ecology program, and so I went and that program selected about 30 foresters out of the Forest Service, BLM, state, and private industry each year to go to the U.S.F.S program is what they called it. And you'd spend 3 weeks at the University of Montana, 3 weeks at Washington State, and 3 weeks at Idaho University, University of Idaho, and graduated from that. And then I went to the Lewis and Clark supervisor's office in Great Falls in was that 80, it was around 79 or 80, was there as a forest silviculturist for 3 years, and then transferred to the Lolo as the timber management planner in their planning group, putting together the first forest plan that the Lolo had, and did that for about 2 years. Then in 1981, I believe it was, I was one of 7 individuals in the Forest Service nationwide that were selected to attend the graduate program at Michigan State. And so I went to Michigan State for a year and got my master's in resource management and public administration. And then after coming back from Michigan State, went back to the Lolo, to the supervisor's office, and then about 6 months later, I was selected for the district ranger position at Superior, and was a ranger at Superior for 4 or 5 years, and then came to the Helena as the planning staff for the Helena National Forest, as well as then in my last 15 years, I basically most of my job was forest appeals and litigation staff officer, handling appeals to project appeals and project litigation.
So during that time, you saw a lot of legislation come through that affected forest planning.
Yes.
And so with all the appeals, is there, I mean, obviously people have to have some standing, but is there a better way to do that, do you think? Like a drainage at a time, or, I mean, what are some of your thoughts on that after your experience?
Well, a lot of the problems the Forest Service did to itself, and that you've got it's like most things. The basic legislation is usually relatively benign. It's what you do to yourself when you write the regulations. And because the BLM and the Forest Service both operate with the same basic NEPA, National Management Act legislation. But when the Forest Service designed the regulations that accompany it, they allowed for the appeal process to where, for the cost of a stamp, you can mail a postcard to the next level up decision-making authority from whoever made the original decision that you're appealing. So if the district ranger made the decision, then they would appeal to the forest supervisor. If the forest supervisor made the decision, then they'd appeal to the regional forester. And then you would have to rule on internally, administratively, on that appeal. And then if the appellant lost the appeal, then they could then appeal to the federal court to litigate you. The BLM had a slightly different process in that you appealed to a judicial review board, and they would review the appeal, and if they agreed with it, then the appellant would win. And if they didn't agree with it, the Bureau of Land Management would win, and that essentially was it, the end of the road. Whereas with the Forest Service, we'd end up going to the district court in Missoula and fighting the case out there. And if the appellants lost, then it was almost 100% guaranteed that they would take it to the appeals court for the 10th in Seattle, and we'd have to hear it again over there. And anytime you go to court, there may be 10 issues or 15 issues that the appellant throws into their mix, just shotgunning whatever they can and hoping something will stick. And the Forest Service can win on 14 of the 15 issues. But because we were to lose one issue out of the 15, then it's the same as losing all of them. I mean, you're stuck. And so I think I much prefer the BLM's approach. It's cleaner, shorter, cheaper than the Forest Service approach was. And although I think the Forest Service is trying to clean up their approach now and write some new regulations. But after retirement, I haven't been dedicated enough to go search through the regs.
So did you ever